There was a time when people would pay good money just to stare at someone with a deformity without any shame, guilt, or empathy. Freak shows were the dark corner of the American circus, where genetic mutations turned into dollar signs and the bizarre became the business. But these weren't myths or stories. These were real people, living, breathing bodies, labeled as circus freaks. The ones you're about to see weren't just disturbing, they were the headline act. Let's start off with number 15, the Roy family of performing albinos. The Roys were less a sideshow act and more a full circus dynasty. James Campbell, who went by Rob Roy, wasn't really Scottish, but the name worked. His wife Annie Weiser, also born with albinism, had a flair for spectacle and performed as a living statue called the White Madagascar Princess. Together they built a family of performers. Their son, King Charles Roy, was billed as the first albino child born to albino parents in the U.S., a rare title in an already rare world. He later married his cousin Minnie Bell, likely in hopes of passing on the albino trait. 6 of their 9 kids did. The family worked with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey before settling at Dreamland in Coney Island, where they juggled acts like sword swallowing and contortionism. They eventually left the road and settled in Jamestown, Pennsylvania, running a farm and several local businesses. In a world that profited off difference, the Roys ran the show. Number 14, Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. Stefan Bobrowski was born in 1891 in a village within the Russian Empire. His body was covered in long, thick hair due to hypertrichosis, a genetic condition that earned him the stage name Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. Promoters, always eager for a wild backstory, claimed his mom had been scared by a lion during pregnancy, a tale meant to explain his fur-like coat. Barnum and Bailey signed him early, and his look turned heads everywhere he performed. But Lionel wasn't just a freak. He spoke many languages, had a sharp wit, and performed with quiet confidence. Offstage, he was calm and deeply kind. He married, raised a family, and managed to build a dignified life while the world stared at his looks. In a business built on shock, Lionel stood out for being steady, thoughtful, and respectful. Fans came for the lion's mane. They stayed for the man. His story proved that dignity and difference could live side by side in the circus spotlight. Number 13, Uncle Billy Turner. William Henry Turner wasn't the type to settle for ordinary work. This New Yorker fought for the Union in the Civil War before moving west and carving out a stranger kind of fame. In his 40s, he lost an arm to a belt sander accident, but instead of pity, he found showmanship. Turner built his own traveling medicine show, where he'd swallow swords, tell stories, and sell Wahoo Indian medicine, which was a tonic that promised to fix everything from gout to heartbreak. Between acts, he even worked as a circuit court judge, hearing cases by day, hustling by night. His sharp humor made him a local legend. Once, to silence a heckler, he shoved a sword down his throat and yanked up the cheese sandwich he'd eaten earlier. By his 90s, he was still performing at Gettysburg Veterans reunions, suit-pressed and blade-ready. Turner lived almost a century proving that grit and gall could outlast anything, even war and age. He was a man. Number 12, John Coffey. John followed the path first carved by Isaac, the living skeleton. Born in Piqua in 1852, Coffey lived an ordinary youth until his 30s, when his body began wasting away for reasons no doctor could explain. His weight soon dropped below 70 pounds. He debuted as the Ohio Skeleton at a Chicago dime museum, but quickly realized that being stared at wasn't enough. Reinventing himself, he dressed sharply, adopted the title Skeleton Dude, and built his act around wit and confidence. He teased audiences with staged marriages, mock bride contests, and a flair that made him unforgettable. Coffey joined Barnum and Bailey in 1889, his fame taking him across Europe. But by 1905, an injury left him unable to walk, and the weight he gained ended his career. Attempts as a fortune reader failed, imitators stole his name, and his money vanished. By 1912, he died forgotten, a pioneer who deserved better, yet received none. Number 11. The Shields Brothers. These brothers from White Rock were promoted as towering freaks of nature, but the reality was smarter than that. The family had 7 brothers total, but only 4. Shadwell, Augustus, John Franklin, and Jack performed in sideshows. Barnum picked them up in the late 1870s, advertising them as giants nearing 8 feet tall. In truth, their heights ranged from 6 feet 8 to 7 feet. Clever costuming, platform boots, stiff uniforms, and tall military hats added illusion to their stature. They moved on from Barnum to travel with Adam Forepaugh and John Robinson's circuses. Their look stayed consistent, formal, strict, military-like. Audiences didn't come for acrobatics or speech. They came for the height. Eventually, the act broke up, but Shadwell, ironically, the shortest of them, kept the giant role going solo. These weren't medical anomalies or rare conditions. They were marketing, illusion, and timing. In a time when differences sold, the Shields brothers leaned into exaggeration and made it work for nearly a decade. Number 10. Harry Hill. Harry was the kind of guy New York City makes legends out of. He was raised among gamblers in England and learned horses before he learned anything else. That skill brought him to the U.S., first managing stables, then dealing horses in Manhattan, right where the city blurred rich and reckless. In 1854, he opened Harry Hill's Variety Theater on Houston and Crosby, a melting pot of crooks, politicians, and writers. It was equal parts concert saloon, fight club, and circus. You could drink, gamble, and watch bare-knuckle boxing all under one roof. Even Mark Twain stopped by just to say he did. Hill himself sometimes performed poetry and refereed fights, keeping a rowdy peace. Though he preached no profanity or theft, chaos reigned nightly. Still, he became a millionaire, running hotels, ferries, and horse stables. When corruption probes ruined him, he lost it all but never quit. Even in ruin, Harry embodied the wild spirit of early New York. Number 9. The Dutch Giant. Albert Johann Kramer towered over crowds in every country he visited. This Dutchman's height varied depending on who told the story. Some said 9 feet 3, others closer to 7'10". But even the smallest guess turned heads. He toured across Europe, South America, and the U.S., sharing the stage with his brother-in-law, Joseph Sepetoni Fessler, a performer barely 2 feet tall. Their contrast, one towering, one tiny, made for a perfect circus illusion. Kramer sometimes performed under the name Jan van Albert, or simply Lofty, always dressed in impeccable suits that made his size even more commanding. Behind the curtain, though, his body was paying the price. Circulation issues worsened as he aged, eventually costing him both legs in 1975. He died the next year, remembered as the Netherlands' most amazing giant. He didn't just perform size, he carried the burden of it. And for a lifetime, the world couldn't stop looking up at him. Number 8. The Elephant Man. When talking about circus legends, Joseph Merrick stands alone. This 19th century British performer wasn't just a sideshow attraction, he was something people had never seen. While most acts could still smile, speak, or blend in somehow, Merrick's condition defied classification. His limbs and spine twisted. Thick growths covered his skin. His face became a mask of bone and swelling. He didn't look unusual. He looked inhuman. No one knew exactly what he had, and even today, the debate continues. Some called him a gentle soul, highly intelligent. Others saw only his body. Either way, Merrick lived most of his life being stared at, pointed at, and avoided. He didn't have choices. The freak show was his only lifeline. His body was both his prison and his paycheck. He wasn't chasing fame. He was trying to survive in a world that didn't know what to do with him. The public saw a monster, Behind it all was a man asking to be seen. Number 7. Zoli. Zoltán Hirsch, or simply Zoli, grew up chasing laughter across Hungary's small theaters. This energetic clown and acrobat found his rhythm in Pécs before traveling through Europe, Budapest, Vienna, Amsterdam, Paris, and even as far as South Africa and South America. His act was pure satire, parading in national costumes, teasing stereotypes, and playing every fool in the room with equal mischief. Crowds adored him, no matter the language. But as the 1930s darkened, his world collapsed. A Jewish performer under Hungary's new racial laws, Zoli lost his bookings, his audience, and eventually his country. He tried to survive by selling his memoirs on the street, an artist reduced to peddling memories. In 1944, when the Nazis occupied Hungary, he was deported to Auschwitz and murdered soon after. Years later, a toy named Roli Zoli appeared in Hungarian stores, a strange echo of the man who once made the world laugh until it forgot how. Number 6. Fakir Musafar. Roland Loomis had a normal life until he decided normal wasn't enough. In his 40s, he stepped away from routine and became Fakir Musafar. Not to shock, not to trend, he believed pain had purpose. He saw the body as a vessel, not a cage. He pierced his skin, suspended from hooks, bled by choice, and called it spiritual exploration. Inspired by tribal rituals from around the world, he practiced them with absolute respect. In 1977, he stepped into public view, not with applause in mind, but authenticity. Most didn't understand what he was doing, and that was fine. Fakir wasn't trying to explain himself. He wasn't there to perform. He was there to feel, to push. He viewed the body not as flesh, but as a language. Today, his influence still runs deep in body modification and spiritual circles. Fakir didn't chase attention, he chased depth. He didn't perform for claps. He explored pain as a truth that only a few dared to face. Number 5. Bear Man. He never needed a name to leave a mark. At the Greenbrier Valley Fair in 1938, a photo captured him mid-crawl, bearded, small, and silent, moving across gravel with rocks in both hands like paws. He didn't bark, growl, or beg for attention. He just existed, fully, in his own world. A dwarf man, walking on all fours, surrounded by gawkers and whispers. But he never broke character, and nobody ever figured out if it even was a character. Some thought he had a condition, others thought it was an act. There are no records and no backstory, just a few haunting photographs and a crowd that couldn't stop staring. He was strange, of course, but also fearless. At a time when people like him were hidden away, he walked straight into the spotlight, on his own terms. He didn't perform tricks. He just showed up, in full defiance of what the world expected from him. And somehow, without speaking a word, he said everything. Number 4. Albert and Alberta. Harry Caro made his name by splitting himself in half. On stage, he became Albert and Alberta, the he-she. One side of his body dressed as a man in a suit and tie, the other side corseted, curled, and painted as a woman. The transformation wasn't magic. It was precision. Each morning, he shaved and trained one side of his body differently to perfect the illusion. Promoters sold the story that he'd been a girl who changed sex at 10. But the truth was cleverer. It was pure stagecraft. He performed through the 1930s and 50s on Lowe's vaudeville circuit, Hubert's Museum in Times Square, and Coney Island's World Circus. His act scandalized some and fascinated others, forcing audiences to question what they thought they knew about gender. Often mistaken for Josephine Joseph from Freaks, Caro instead appeared in a 1952 documentary, proudly in full split costume. In an age terrified of difference, he performed it fearlessly. Number 3. George Williams. Most sideshow names matched the act. Alligator Girl had rough skin. Leopard Lady had spots. Penguin Boy waddled. But George? They called him Turtle Boy. Why? No one's really sure. He didn't have a shell. He didn't crawl. Maybe it was a slow movement. Maybe it just looked good on a banner. Born in 1859, George was just 18 inches tall, with bent limbs and stunted growth. But what set him apart was music. He played harmonica and flute, live, not mimed. He wasn't just a spectacle, he had skill. He became a regular at Huber's 14th Street Museum in New York, later performing at other dime museums nationwide. Audiences loved him. His paycheck didn't show it. Being black meant getting paid less, no matter the talent. George stayed on the circuit for decades, eventually disappearing from records after suing the city for a sidewalk injury. Turtle Boy? Maybe not. But George made himself heard, even in a world built to silence him. Number 2. Joe the Leopard Boy. A.E. Bishel was born in 1869 with a rare skin condition called leukoderma, creating sharp patches of light and dark on his body. It gave him a spotted, piebald look that earned him the stage name Joe the Leopard Boy. Barnum, always quick to spot potential, signed him early on. Joe became a regular attraction under Barnum's banner before moving to the dime museum circuit, where audiences were both amazed and confused by his natural skin pattern. Unlike other performers who exaggerated, Joe let his appearance speak for itself. His condition was real, not costume or makeup, and it drew attention everywhere he went. Leopard boys were part of a troubling tradition. Many had African ancestry and were paraded as exotic. Joe's act didn't rely on tricks, just biology and bravado. In 1909, he died unexpectedly after falling through an open trapdoor. The bizarre accident ended his run, but his image lived on in museum posters and freak show ads for years. Number 1. The Fiji Mermaid. Long before social media and viral hoaxes, Barnum was already 2 steps ahead. In the mid-1800s, he displayed what he claimed was a half-monkey, half-fish sea creature, preserved and grotesque, crammed inside a dusty glass case. It was called the Fiji Mermaid, and it looked like something dredged from a nightmare. The truth? It was a clever fake. Sewn together from a monkey torso and a fish tail, it was built to disturb. And it worked. People lined up, paid full price, and left rattled. It didn't matter that it wasn't real. Barnum didn't need facts. He needed fascination. And this little horror show tripled his ticket sales. That was the circus game back then. If the world didn't give you a monster, you built one. The Fiji Mermaid was never alive, never magical, and honestly, not even that convincing. But it showed how far the circus would go to feed our appetite for the unnatural. It was a scam, but a legendary one. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.